Okay, today we are moving on with chapter 11. As we discussed last time, we introduced to you the meaning of a chemical reactions and how we describe a chemical reaction by writing either by using a word equation where we write the names of the compounds that they are interacting, or by changing that into symbols and formulas, symbols for elements and formulas for compounds. So it is essential for anybody who wants to describe any chemical reaction to make sure that he knows the formulas for different compounds, because sometimes the one which we provide to you is the name of the compound rather than the formulas. Also, we talked about the most important thing about chemical reaction, which is to get the equation balanced. And that is for one good reason, is that the number of atoms or the grams or the masses of the element are conserved. So whatever you start up with, number of atoms of hydrogen, for example, in a chemical reaction, we should have the same number of hydrogen atoms in the product. And that's what we refer to as balancing a chemical equation. Usually by counting, just trial and error. We try to see how many atoms are there and how many atoms are on the other side. Regarding today's lecture, which is going to be the topic for your lab, by the way, next week we're going to start our labs. This year or this semester, the labs for my section, which is your section and the one at 9, will be on Thursdays, not on Sundays. So Sunday we'll have a lecture, but on Thursday we're going to have a lab. So the topic for the lab is going to be on types of chemical reaction that we are discussing today. And the Zoom link for the lab is already on the Moodle. So if you go to the Moodle, you're going to find the Zoom link for the lecture for 2 sections. But for the lab, it is the same. So whether your section or the other section can use the same link. Okay, and Mr. Zain, of course, he will take the attendance and everything. But from my side, I will upload the assignment for you on Thursdays in order for you to submit your lab report after you finish it. I strongly recommend that you do this immediately after you finish your lab, for a good reason, which is it is very simple, but most of the students, they lose marks because they forget to submit, or they remember the next day, and you know that it will be closing by the end of the day. So no submission will be accepted after 11:59 that day of Thursday. So just do it immediately, and most of the questions that are there is done with Mr. Zain. So he is giving you the answers. And yes, yeah, Abdullah Al-Mtairi. The lab will be as usual. It will be online. So it doesn't matter where you're located. You just need to log in using Zoom. Yes, you can stay home if you want at that time. You want to come here and use the room, you can, but I will not be here. Okay, so that's about the lab. The types of chemical reaction. What we will do today is to identify or classify the 5 general types of chemical reaction. Any chemical reaction that you think of will fall under one of those. Okay, regardless of what chemical reaction you're having. But the question is, and the picture that will lead you into this type of reaction is the following. I'm sure that you have used candles in some point and still using it whenever you have either a party or you have a power cut or whatever reason. What do you think happened to the wax usually when you use it? Melt? Melt? turns into liquid. طيب معناها ليش بنحكي عنه احنا اليوم ما دام احنا types of reaction احنا بنحكي. This is not a chemical reaction. Melting is not a chemical reaction. That's a physical change. Burning. شو يعني burning? Reaction with oxygen. So, and you have another proof that it's not only melting. The melting is due to the high temperature that is due to the reaction. The main reaction is a combustion reaction, which is the reaction of the wax material with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide and water. That is what's producing the heat, and the heat may result in the melting the candle. Okay, and you have another proof that this reaction is happening. You start with a candle this big, but then the next morning you'll find it this short, with some melted here and there. But is the amount melted is equivalent to the one that disappeared? No. So the main reaction is combustion, not melting. Melting is not is going to be every other Thursday. Yes, yeah, Al Johar Al Muhammar. I think I wrote that in the description of the link in the model. I said that it will be every other Thursday, and we've been doing this for since September. So it's not melting. Melting is a side effect of the reaction because of the heat that is produced. And again, melting is not a chemical reaction, as you know. Okay. What are the 5 general types and why we're doing this? Why we need to classify what will help us to classify the chemical reaction. When we classify them, it will become much more easier for you to predict the product, because in any chemical reaction that you do, your purpose is to produce something. And the product is very important. You want to know what kind of product you're going to produce. And that kind of product that you're producing, it depends on the type of material they have and what type of chemical reaction you're having. Face mask is required. And in my case, I'm a little bit far and I cannot use the mask. Okay. ببعد وجهي عنكم في بعض الأحيان. All right, so again, we do the classification for one good reason, and that is to predict the product. You can come down here if you want. That is easier for you. So the reactions that we're talking about, the 5 different reactions, are combination. We're going to see what combination means and how it works. Decomposition, which is the opposite of combination. Then we have a single replacement. Apparently, there's one thing is going to be replaced by another one thing. And we have a double replacement where 2 things are going to replace each other. I'm just trying to explain the, what type of reaction from the name of the reaction. Then the last one is the combustion. This is the easiest. Combustion is basically reacting with oxygen. When we have something react with oxygen, it is burning. We call that combustion reaction. Is it necessarily that every single reaction that we know has to be classified among those 5 reactions? No, not necessarily to be uniquely classified. And I can show you that, which is between combination and decomposition and combustion. Combination is the combining 2 elements together. One of them is oxygen, and that is combustion. So some reaction like the one that we are discussing now is going to be classified as both combination and combustion, but that is very special case for that kind of thing. So take a look at the definition. It is definitely a chemical reaction, but chemical reaction between 2 or more. It has to be 2 or more. Otherwise, you cannot combine something with nothing, right? So it has to be 2 or more substances. Regardless, those substances could be an element, could be a compound, because you know that substances could be classified as either an element or a compound. As long as it is pure and uniform composition, we call it substances. What is a product? It is a one single substance. So how do I know from the number of products and reaction what type of reaction is this? From if we have 2 or more things reacting to form one thing, يعني في عندك 2 reactants and 1 product, definitely this is a combination reaction. Let's take some examples, and one of the best examples is the burning of a magnesium wire. By the way, the color here is very beautiful, and that is why the fireworks that you guys are playing with, or somebody playing with, the different colors are due to the presence of different metals. Different metals, when they burn, they produce different colors. So these colors are due to burning metals. One of them is magnesium and has this nice color. Anyways, the magnesium combined with oxygen to form a magnesium oxide. That's why I was referring to the similarity between combination and combustion. This is combustion too, because it's burning the wire. But it is classified as a combination to start with, because it's combining either 2 elements, like in this case, or it could be compounds. It doesn't matter. Either 2 elements or 2 compounds to produce one single substance. Okay? One of the things that usually a typical reaction, just, a typical questions, that is, we ask you, what type of reaction is this? at least for combination, what you need to know that you have two reactants to produce one product. Yes, Faiz. ايش هو؟ ماله؟ ولا شو نحط؟ لا ما في. صوديوم كلورايد. ماله صوديوم كلورايد؟ اه NaCl بعدين. لا بدي افهم NaCl شو بدك تسوي فيه. يعني Na مع Cl يعطينا شو اسمه؟ طب ما احنا عشان هيك سميناها combination. If every time will be oxygen. انت مستعجل شوي يا فيصل as usual. Combustion is the last reaction that we're gonna discuss. Combustion, yes, it is a reaction with oxygen. بس انا اللي بقوله ان combustion, which is reaction with oxygen, it can be classified also as a combination. The combination not necessarily to have oxygen in there. Did I say that oxygen has to be part of that reaction? لا هذا الحكي راح تشوفه بعدين when we say that a combustion reaction that involve the reaction with oxygen لأنه هذا combustion. بس أنا combination could be anything. بس أنا مش فاهم الصوديوم كلورايد هذا من وين جبته وكيف هو بده يصير. يعني الصوديوم مع الكلورين قصدك to form sodium chloride. This is not the way to make sodium chloride وانت you know that because we discussed that. What are the two sources of sodium chloride الموجودة في the way we make it? لا أنا بحكي عن sources. What are the two sources where we get our salt from? جبت A في الكيمستري 1 ليش؟ Sodium chloride can be extracted from the salt water like the Dead Sea. ذكر صورة ورجيتكم إياها كان الملح الكوام هاي من الديد سي or from the rocket deposit. From the rockets they extracted. بس ما في رياكشن الناس يعني الملح اللي انت بتاكله هذا مش في واحد قاعد بيجيب صوديوم وكلورين وفعلهم مع بعض. بس anyways, your argument is the following, is that is it necessary to have oxygen? No. Whenever that happens, then the reaction will be classified as combustion, which is going to be the last reaction to be discussed. Okay. المهم ان انت whenever you see something like this, two reactants, regardless of what they are, they produce one product that is combination reaction. This is a good example of that, which is all the group A metals like sodium, potassium, whenever they react with chlorine, they produce a binary compound, we call it, which is like, for example, لو كان هذا صوديوم على رأيك, it might produce sodium chloride, but that is not the way we make sodium chloride. That's what the idea is. طيب, sometimes we combine non-metals with each other. When we combine metals with non-metals, فهمنا, we produce a binary compound, which is ionic compound. طيب, when we combine two non-metals يعني from this side of the periodic table, a covalent bond will form. A covalent bond, it depends on the oxidation state of the elements that are combined together, and sometimes we have more than one product. يعني when you combine oxygen with sulfur, okay, that is, by the way, this is not burning. مش كل تفاعل مع الأكسجين has to be burning. Sometimes it's just a typical reaction. That's an oxidation reaction that you're not going to see a flame in there. That is a combustion reaction. But anyways, when you combine sulfur with oxygen, you may have more than one product. Why is that? Because sulfur can exist in more than one oxidation state. Okay, sulfur could be, what is the oxidation state of sulfur in this case here? تفهمي شو يعني oxidation state؟ تتذكروا لما حكينا عن الكومباوندز how the compounds are neutral. يعني ليش الصوديوم كلورايد is neutral؟ لأنه هذا negative وهذا positive regardless whether the ions or not. طيب ليش مثلا هذا الكومباوند NaCO3 CO3 هذا عليه charge؟ No, it is neutral. ليش؟ لأنه the oxidation state of this is +1 وهذا بيكون -2 -2 times 3. That's what we used to do, right? So I'm asking you, what is the oxidation state of sulfur in this case? In SO2 -2. طيب خلينا نرد عليك. -2 وهون عندنا -2 times 2 that is -4. معناها كل الكومباوند لازم يكون عليه -2. how we make it neutral. 1 احنا بدنا نزيد ولا بدنا ننقص يا محمد؟ هي الشغله يعني تحذير. ها -4 كمان -4. طب ما هذا -4 ما هو جاي من الاكسجين. شو بده يكون السلفر عشان يطلع النيوترال؟ +4 يعني شغله ما بدهاش شطاره. نشوف تبعون الزوم. ها شوف هي هديل وعبد المحسن طار بقول لك بلس وماينس وهذا بقول لك ملت. اوكي. انتوا بتنسوا شغلات تعلموها في كيمستري 1. هاي الشغلات we spend a lot of time talking about it. صح ولا لا؟ كم من مره جبنا كومباوند وقلنا what is this what is that والرولز والى اخره. ف this is +4 in this case. طب السلفر هنا what is it +4 +5 4. طب واذا كان +4 ليش we have two different compounds؟ 3. عبد الله شو رايك؟ 4 ولا 3 ولا 1؟ محمد بقول لك 1. المره الاولى 1. طيب ها يا جماعه، طب انا ورجيتكم how is the SO2. كيف عملنا ال SO2؟ ال SO2 is neutral. neutral يعني ما عليه charge. how did we do that؟ قلنا الاكسجين is -2. الاكسجين دائما -2. ف -2 times 2 that is -4. اذا هذا +4 صح؟ طيب وال SO3 +6. اذا بضل لك ماينس، ما هو الاكسجين is the minus. it is +6. فالسلفر have two oxidation states plus it could be -2 sometimes in different compounds, but usually we have more than one compound due to the different oxidation state of sulfur. هلا بنعطيكم مثال ثاني بتشوف. اوكي هذا كمان another good example. You remember the transition metals اللي موجودين في النص iron وكابر وسيلفر والى اخره. We said that those they have multi oxidation state. دائما عندهم more than one. والايرون is one popular one معروف. الايرون either فرس or فرك، حديدوز وحديديك، مش هيك بيقول في العربي صح؟ عمركم سمعتوا في الحديدوز والحديديك؟ قالوا شو كنتوا تاخذوا كيمستري انتوا بالعربي ولا بالانجليزي؟ ماينس هذا ظلم. بلس +2 or +3 يعني ايرون 3 or ايرون 2. شو كنتوا تسموه طيب اللي بيكون +2 بالانجلش ما دامكم ثقافتكم انجلش؟ اللي قال لك هذا شو؟ تفضل شو كنت تسميه؟ طيب خلص بالعربي فهمنا، بالانجليزي يا سيدي كل واحد وعلامه. فرك نفرس بسموه. الفرك is +2 والفرس is +3. ما بقول لكم تعليمكم في المدارس، ما انتم اخذتوا نفس الكتاب هيو اللي مع نور، نفس الكتاب اخذتوه في المدارس، بس انا مش عارف شو بيعلموكم فيه الكتاب هذا. anyways الايرون can exist as iron 2 or iron 3 عشان هيك we have more than one product with whenever it is combined with sulfur. هلا بنشوف example. طيب the opposite of combination is عكس الزواج. شو هو؟ شو عكس الزواج؟ والله مش عارف كيف تتجوز انت. عكس الزواج يا اخي، اثنين اتجوزوا. what is the opposite of that؟ طب خلاص، طب قول لي طلقوا. that's what I'm asking. الكومبينيشن زواج، اثنين بيتزوجوا بيسووا one family. الطلاق شو بكون؟ one family بيصيروا two people. that's what the composition is about. انت بس جاي تضحك، مش جاي اذا عجبك النكته بس ما عجبك الكونسبت. بس it's a good concept ولا لا؟ شو بدك احسن هيك مثال يفتح نفسك على الصبح وبتعرف شو الفرق ما بين combination and decomposition. احنا كل الفكره انك to identify the chemical reactions. الcombination شو بكون؟ two things they make one thing. بلاش نقول substance. The decomposition will be the opposite. You have one compound that will decompose into two. زي الميركوريك اوكسايد اللي لونه احمر. If you burn it or heat it up then it will change into mercury. وين راح الاكسجين؟ بكون as a gas. It will escape and what is left is the mercury which is liquid. So this is a decomposition reaction where we have one material or one substance that is decomposed into two simpler لأنه مش دائما the compound will be separated into two metals or two elements. I'm sorry. It could be a big compound that will lose some and leave some others. So it will be two simpler substances, they usually say. Two simpler يعني أقل من هذول الثنتين. As a definition, it's the same thing, which is a single compound breaks down into two or more simpler products. That's what I was, more simpler products. That's what the products are produced in this case. Most of the decomposition, usually they produce energy, أكيد. يعني require energy. And you need, like the mercury oxide, in order to decompose something, you basically will be breaking the bonds, and that's why you need to provide energy. Okay, have you had an accident before in a car? Any of you? شو صار لما عملت الاكسيدنت؟ شو اللي بيصير immediately? Airbag. What is the concept of the airbag? How do you where's that air is coming from? Is it air, first of all? What kind of gas is that? It is actually resulting from a decomposition reaction of a material that is classified as an explosive. اللي اسمه sodium azide. Sodium azide, which is sodium N3, is built in that airbag. And whenever you have an accident, because of or due to the shock that will happen when you hit a wall or when you hit another car or you hit somebody or whatever it is, that will cause a shock. And that shock is good enough to start up this reaction and will produce sodium, which is a solid material. طبعا هاي كله we're talking about traces, يعني ما بيكون في كمية كبيرة. And will produce nitrogen, which is a gas. That is the one which is blowing up or filling up the airbag with gas, and that is nitrogen. Okay, now this reaction is very important, as a matter of fact, when we go to chapter 12, because there we're going to ask you whether you become an engineer or whatever it is, you work for a plant that is making cars, نفترض. في big cars, في small cars. The airbag is also, we have small and big. How much sodium azide we need to put in each airbag, that depends on the size of the bag, because you don't want to put too much that will produce a lot of nitrogen and then blow up the whole bag and there's no benefit from it. Or you put smaller amount than what is needed, and that will make what? Small nitrogen, and then the bag is not completely filled with air and it's not going to do the job. So it is important to determine how much exactly of sodium azide you put in there to produce, depending on the size. Let's say somebody is asking you to make an airbag which has, can absorb or can contain up to 10 liters of nitrogen. Okay, so from the liters of nitrogen produced, you can change that into moles. And then from the moles, you can calculate how many moles of sodium azide, and you change that into grams, and you tell them, okay, you need to put 0.3 grams, for example. I'm just giving a number. Okay, 0.3 grams is good enough to produce 10 liters of. This is one of the things that we'll be discussing in chapter 12. طيب, here's an example عشان نشوف انكم استفدتوا من السلفر والايرون والاكسجين ولا لا. Combination of copper with sulfur. وكاتب لك هون two reactions are possible. هلا بدي واحد يساعدني to write the chemical reaction for copper with sulfur, and I'm telling you that there will be two products. طيب, هاي الكبر وهاي sulfur. What is the first product? وهاي الكبر وهاي sulfur. What is the second product? الكبر exists in two oxidation states, which are, ما انك حكيت عن iron, الكبر exists as, انا بسأل عن الكبر بس. الكبر دائما بيكون +1 or +2. فif it is, sulfur is in the same group as oxygen, I will assume that it is -2. In order to do that, if this is -2 وهذا copper 1, then we need to break copper 2s. Okay, in this case, this is +1 and that is -2. طبعا high times 2, that will make it neutral. If in this case it is copper 2, then it will be CuS only. All right, this equation is balanced or not, the second one? High equation, is it balanced? Yes ولا no؟ بعدين مو هذا. Okay. Copper plus sulfur to produce copper and sulfur. And it is balanced. What about this one? So what we need to do, multiply this by 2. Type. Decomposition reaction. Remember, decomposition starts with one single compound that will decompose into simpler ones. طيب water, if we remember we just said in the previous slide that decomposition reaction always require energy, which is in the form of a heat or light or electricity. طيب حطينا electricity هنا. What is this will produce? Water when it is break down. شو بيطلع معانا هنا؟ H O هيك 2H و 2O 1O بس هيك بلاش الاو هاي بنشيلها. طيب هيك كويس. H2 طيب والاو او ولا O2؟ او لحالها؟ عمرك شفتوا او ماشي لحالها هيك؟ يس it is O2. يا جماعه انتوا مشكلتكم جد ما بتنتبهوش للكلام اللي بيصير قبل. 100,000 مرة قلنا إنه الهيدروجين والأكسجين والنيتروجين وكل الهالوجينز they exist in a diatomic molecules. ما في شيء اسمه oxygen as O ولا hydrogen as H unless it is an H plus and that is in solution whenever we're dealing with acid. But as a gas it has to be H2 and O has to be as O2. طيب H2O is making H2 and O2. Is it balanced? Okay, how we balance that? هاي بنضربها في 2 وهاي نضربها في 2. Okay, that is what they call electrolysis of it. What is the opposite of this reaction? لو مشينا هيك شو بنسمي هذا reaction? Hydrogen with oxygen to produce water. Combination. مزبوط. بس حكينا عنه last time. What did we say about this reaction? نشوف كم واحد فيكم يتذكر أي شيء من last lecture. جماعة الزوم. What did we say about this reaction? أنا بحكي عن هذا الرياكشن. The opposite, يعني going from oxygen with hydrogen to produce water. شو كان هذا الرياكشن last time? ما حكينا عن الفيول سيل تبعت الكار وقلنا الهيدروجين with oxygen is replacing gasoline to produce water and it is zero emission لأنه it produces water which is not a pollutant. Anyways شيء مبشر انكم بتدرسوا يعني المحاضرات تبعتكم. Anyway الامتحان قرب 16 of February. Although it will include chapter 10 and 11 only يعني راح يكون مفروض انه يكون easy exam. Okay, هذا الشيء اللي احنا سويناه. This is the first reaction and this is the second and that is the this is after balancing. خلصنا. Okay. طيب. The third type of reaction is called single replacement. من الاسم single replacement معناها somebody which is single has to replace another thing. Like for example when you react potassium with water to produce this compound. طلع هون شو موجود. This is what? Is this a compound or an element? That's a compound. And this is an element. طيب بعد شوي راح تشوف كمان reaction. وين راحت هاي؟ اختفت. Okay. هاي كمان reaction which is we have an element and a compound where the zinc replaces the copper. Even the first thing that you need to learn about single replacement that always we have an element and a compound and produce an element and a compound. The elements they replace each other. Okay, that is number one. Number two is why zinc is replacing copper. Why this reaction needs to happen to start with. In other words, خليني أسألكم السؤال بطريقة ثانية. If we have copper solid أو بلاش نكتب هاي That's the opposite of this. Is this possible انه الكبر to replace the zinc over here؟ لا. ليش؟ طيب ما هذا واحد element وهذا compound. هاي element and a compound وهاي element and a compound. ليش؟ مش سامعك مع الكمامة بس anyways. طيب هاي solid وهاي liquid، هاي liquid وهاي solid. مش ظابطة معك اليوم. أنا بقول لك إنه هذا reaction does not happen backward but it happened forward. Why zinc will replace copper? Because يكون في حاجة هنا replaces element, because element replaces element. ما أنا عارف إنه replaces element, but why element zinc will replace copper بينما copper does not replace zinc؟ أي شيء يعني. الحين خلينا ناخذ example يضحكك أنت شوي. نفترض إن إحنا عندنا الآن إحنا قاعدين هون، أوكي؟ لو أجى طالب من برا، a student came from outside and the capacity is 1 2 3 5 و 5 8. This is the maximum capacity of this room. ما بنقدر ناخذ another male student إلا إذا بنكحش محمد برا. Do you think هذا الطالب بيقدر يطلع محمد برا ويقعد محله ولا لا؟ بيعتمد على شو؟ لا الأستاذ ما له دخل، قاعد أنا كتلست ماليش علاقة بالموضوع. بيعتمد على الطالب اللي أجا. Is he stronger than محمد يحمله ويرميه برا ولا لا؟ إذا بيقدر yes the reaction will happen. He will come بحمله من كتافه هيك وبرميه برا بقعد محله. أو إذا هو مش قده بخش بس شوفه هيك بقول لا يا عم أنا مالي مال الشغل بضله طالع. صح؟ That's exactly what happened here. Zinc will replace copper because zinc is more reactive than copper. أو stronger إذا بدك يعني. If you consider the example that محمد كيف عليك. تنبسطت على انك خاف منك صح؟ Zinc will replace copper but copper will not replace. طب انا كيف بدي اعرف في الامتحان؟ انتم بتسالوا حالكم السؤال هذا. How would I know؟ في راح نعطيكم شيء اسمه الاكتيفيتي series which will list the element which can replace another element. Potassium here replaces hydrogen. The zinc here replaces copper, but in general, the reaction is an element with a compound that produces an element and a compound. But the element to replace another element has to be more reactive than that one, okay? This is the same reaction. نشوف أنا بدي أوصل لهذا. طيب, here's another example. Chlorine gas or aqueous that is dissolved in water react with NaBr. What do you think the product will be? This is an element and a compound. When they replace, شو البرودكت اللي you expect it over here? يلا يا محمد قول لي شو أكتب. Element and a compound, it will produce an element and a compound. But which element and which compound? شو الكومباوند اللي بيطلع هنا؟ ClBr أيوة plus 2 وبعدين Na. ما شاء الله. روعة أنتوا على فكرة. يعني روعة على الآخر. عمرك شفت two halogens react with each other؟ وين هذا شفتوه؟ الهالوجين replace هالوجين. بعدين هذا metals وهذا non metals يا جماعة. فN yes it is going to be NaCl plus ايش؟ Br2. Okay, so the chlorine was able to replace the bromine. طب شو هم هذول الكلورين؟ في عندنا فلورين، كلورين، برومين and iodine. شو مسميهم هذول؟ halogens in group 7. طيب هنا الكلورين was able to replace the bromine. نرجع للاكتيفيتيز اللي كمان مرة. Is it possible for the opposite reaction to happen? No, it's not going to happen. ليش؟ لأنه any element in the halogen will replace any element that is below it. In other words, as we go down the group, the reactivity will decrease. Exactly. Okay, because it decreased, that's why the chlorine was able to replace the bromine, but the bromine cannot replace that. Bromine can replace iodine, but iodine cannot replace any of those. Fluorine will replace all of them. عشان to make it easy for you, this is the what I was referring to. This is the product that we produce. بينما if you consider this reaction, Okay, chlorine مع this is after balancing. This is the activity series that I was referring to. هنا مجموعة من elements that are listed: lithium, calcium, هاي zinc وهاي copper. Remember the zinc and copper? The zinc was able to replace the copper because the reactivity decreased as we go down in this activity series. هذول مش جروب في periodic table. These are just a group of elements that is put together in something we call activity series. طبعا activity series is much bigger than this, but احنا we're showing you this part. Okay, what you need to do with this one currently, you need to memorize it for the current coming exam. هذه list of elements you need to memorize which one is on top of the other one عشان تعرف which one will replace the other one. Any element here will replace all the elements that's below it if it is another compound. يعني lithium can replace all of these guys. بينما silver cannot replace any of those لو فعلته معه. Unless you do something about it, يعني to put energy or whatever, yes, it will work. الاكتيفيتي سيريز هاي you need to memorize it only for this exam. بس نروح لنوصل chapter 20 و 21, it will be replaced with a much bigger table that contains the voltage of that, and you can determine which one will replace which other one. I don't want to talk about it for now. If we give you a single replacement reaction, you should be able to tell whether the reaction will happen or not. If it is a halogen, depends on the halogens, where the position is. Anyone in the top can replace something in the below. In the activity series, any element will replace all the elements that are below it. That's what it says here. A reactive metal will replace any metal listed below it in the activity series. As I said, lithium can replace all of them. Silver cannot replace any of them because it's the lowest in the activity series. This is about the halogen. As I said, Br with NaCl, no reaction, while Br with NaI, it will react because bromine is above iodine, while here bromine is below chlorine, and that's why it doesn't happen. Number 4 is the double replacement. Apparently, again, from the name of when we say double replacement, there are two things that need to be replaced. في عندنا compound and a compound. كل واحد فيهم ionic compound. Ionic compound is made from what? From ions, which is positive and negative. مظبوط? The positive ion in this compound will replace the positive ion in the other compound. زي مثلا هذا الكومباوند. When you have potassium iodide اللي هو هذا Ki is an ionic compound. ليش؟ metal with non-metal زي معروف صح؟ Ki is aqueous يعني soluble in water لأنه ionic compound. Lead nitrate, which is PbNO3 taken twice, that is also an ionic compound. So that exists as lead plus 2 and NO3 minus. وهذا I minus and K plus. That's the way they exist actually in the solutions. يعني أنا لو بدي أكتب الإيكويشن I can write it in ionic form. هذا جايين عليه إن شاء الله في السكشن القادم اللي هو how to write an equation in ionic complete ionic form. طيب شو اللي بده يصير الآن؟ هذول هم اللي بصير فيهم الريبليسمنت. البوزيتيف ايونز كل واحد بياخذ محل الثاني. البوتاسيوم will replace it and will interact with the nitrate. That's why we produce potassium nitrate. Lead, it will react with the iodine to produce lead iodide. Lead iodide is solid. That's the way we know that the reaction happened because we started with two clear solutions. هذا شايف البيكر هذا اللي حامله بيده that contains LKI, which is colorless solution. وهذا اللي هو lead nitrate. Also, it is a colorless solution. When we mix them together, we started seeing this yellow solid material that is either in the walls of the beaker or in the bottom, and that is a precipitate. This yellow stuff is due to the formation of the lead iodide. The bottom line is how to differentiate this reaction from the other reactions. الcombination الأول واحد اللي هو إيش؟ Combination, which is two elements or two compounds that they combine to produce one single product. صح؟ الثاني decomposition, where we have one single compound is decomposed into simpler products. A single replacement has to be an element and a compound, and will produce an element and compound. When you see two compounds معناها ايش؟ It's a double replacement. Okay, where we have كانهم زي اصابعي هيك، هذا هم البوزيتيف ايونز they will replace each other. هذول هيك one compound، هذول one compound، بعدين بصيروا مش عارف هيك بصيروا. اوكي، بحيث انه كل واحد بياخذ محل الثاني. Let's see what we have. 2157809. طيب, is it always that we produce a precipitate? No. In a double replacement, it is possible to have three types of products. Either we form a precipitate like the one we show you, or we may have a gas that is formed, or we may have a molecular compound تحديدا ال H2O, and that is will happen whenever we have acids with bases. خلينا أورجيكم examples. هذا is a compound NaCN, sodium cyanide, okay, and that is an ionic compound. This is sulfuric acid, which is in solution also will be split into 2H plus NSO3 SO4 minus 2. And then the hydrogen will replace the sodium. We produce hydrogen cyanide, and this is a gas, and this is in solution. And then this is the first example of double replacement where we produce a gas. One of the product is a gas. In this case here, we have the calcium hydroxide with hydrochloric acid. So this is an acid-base reaction. حدا بتذكر what is the rule for acid-base reaction? What is the always product? Acid with base, شو what they produce? حامض وقاعدة دائما بيطلعوا شو؟ أنت ثقافتك إنجليزية. I'm sorry والله. تعرفش الأسيد؟ What is the meaning of acid بالعربي؟ ها؟ حميض ولا حمير؟ حميض. وين جاي أنت يا زلمة؟ حامض. والبيس ايه شو بسموها البيس بالعربي؟ البيس بيس. طيب حدا بيعرف شو يعني بيس؟ قاعدة. طب حامض مع قاعدة شو بيطلعوا؟ ووتر اند. بعرف انهم بتعادلوا، انا بحكي عن البرودكت. دائما بتجاوبوا السؤال بطريقة مش اللي بسأله، انا بسأل حامض مع قاعدة acid with base they always produce water and salt. Yes, they produce salt and water. هذا اللي بنحكي عنه. هذا also is a double replacement reaction لأنه اللي راح يصير في replacement of the hydrogen with the calcium. البوزيتيف ions كمان مرة they replace each other. البوزيتيف ion هو الكالسيوم والبوزيتيف ion هو ال H+. They will replace each other. They will produce salt which is calcium chloride and the water that is a molecular compound. هذا المقصود إنه أنت in one of the examples of double replacement, you produce a molecular compound. Why the big deal? Because we started with ionic compounds. هذول الاثنين double replacement, all the double replacement reaction is between two ionic compounds. And usually they produce ionic compounds. One of them is not soluble, that's fine, like the precipitate. Could form a gas or could form water and salt whenever we deal with acids and bases. مش كثير مهم تحفظ لي examples هاي. I don't care about this as long as you understand the concept and you can do two things. Predict the products. طبعا هذا reaction here, this is will be the topic, not نفس reaction, but the concept of the reaction of two ionic compounds to form a precipitate or not will be the topic to be discussed next time. اللي هو section 3. Section 3 about reaction in aqueous media. All right. So whenever we have reaction in aqueous media, that's what we produce a solid material and a soluble material. طيب خلينا نشوف مدام تعلمنا how to do a double replacement. Whether we can answer this question. What is the product expected in this case? يلا. Who's going to help me? BA. CO3. طيب plus K2 Cl. مين اللي كان بيحكي أول شيء؟ أوكي. خلينا نشوف شو الأخطاء اللي ارتكبت فيها هنا. أول شيء إنهم replace each other. Thank you very much. That's an excellent work. البوتاسيوم replaces the barium, and that's the main objective. الباريوم chloride is BaCO3. Thank you very much. ليش؟ لا I hope انك you know this. انه الباريوم is 2 plus والCO3 is minus 2. عشان هيك بنحطش Ba2 بنقول BaCO3. اوكي؟ هنا المشكله بس. عمرك شفت K2Cl؟ It is KCl. لانه الK is in group 1, it will form a plus 1. with Cl in group 7, it will make a minus 1. So they will be a binary compound. واحنا شفنا الرياكشن هذا between البوتاسيوم والكلورين ورجيناكم انه it will make KCl. مظبوط؟ بس هذا الغلط يعني. Otherwise, thank you very much. Okay, هذا is going to be a solid. طبعا الحين صعب عليك to predict, but after we finish section 3 next time بدك تصير تعرف انه هذا solid ولا مش solid based on the degree of solubility of the product. هذا solid ولا aqueous؟ potassium chloride. ليش؟ شو خلاك تقول يعني؟ ليش ترددتي طيب؟ لانه يا جماعه صوديوم كلورايد بوتاسيوم كلورايد كل الايونيك كومباوندز هاي بتكون soluble in water لانها it can split into ions. معروف الميتالز with non-metals they produce ionic compounds. طيب this is what we did. طبعا after you do that you have to balance the equation by putting a 2 somewhere in the KCl. خلينا نشوف اخر reaction لانه we need to finish in 4 minutes. That's the combustion reaction. Combustion is the easiest. هلا بنيجي لكلامك يا فيصل, which is any reaction that contains an oxygen, it is a combustion reaction. It is often containing, always involve oxygen, or sometimes often we have hydrocarbons. أي hydrocarbon you burn it with or react it with oxygen, it will produce the same product, which is carbon dioxide and water, like what we discussed last time. Gasoline in your car, burning the butane or propane gas in your home, all of these will produce the same material, which is carbon dioxide and water. And that is a combustion reaction, okay? This is very important. I wish that we can spend too much on it, but in general, when we have a hydrocarbon, let's say X, CXY, whatever, let's say C3H8, for example, plus O2, that will produce carbon dioxide and water. Okay. طيب لو كان هذا الأكسجين مش good enough, يعني ما في كمية enough, what is the product will be? If we have shortage of oxygen, instead of producing carbon dioxide, we're going to produce carbon monoxide. الكربون monoxide اللي هو CO. CO is different from the CO2, is being very toxic. And that's what most of the people, they make mistakes, especially at this time of the year when it is cold. You want to have a fire at home in order to get heat. And the mistake that they make, they have it in a closed room. If you have a fire in a closed room for a long time, all the people who are inside will get intoxicated and maybe they will die. Why? Because the fire will consume all the oxygen. And after that, in addition to this, in addition to the lack of oxygen, also it will start producing carbon monoxide, which is very toxic. And that's why most of the incidents that happen at this time of the year is due to the same mistake. طبعا هو ربنا اللي بيقدر الامور. كلنا بنعرف انه we shouldn't have a fire in a closed room, بس بتلاقي في عيله هيك they decided to do it. يعني امبارح كنت بشوف على الفيسبوك كان في mother, unfortunately, يعني she has 2 kids, وراحت تشرب قهوه عند الجيران وخلت المدفأة هاي اللي بتشتغل على الكيروسين مولعه في البيت واولادها نايمين. صار حريق في البيت وماتوا الاولاد 2 وهي تشرب قهوه. طبعا السبب انه كانت الروم از كلوزد لانه الدنيا برد. they close everything. سكر الشبابيك, سكر الابواب, ولع دفايه بتستهلك اكسجين. what do you expect will happen? Okay, it is always happening there. ان شاء الله ما يصير لاي حاجه فيكم. Okay, this is the general reaction for hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide and water. Okay, I think the time is over, so I'm just going to show you this. There's a review part of this one. I would prefer to do it again with you on Sunday as a يعني reminder of that. هذا اللي هو الgasoline. The same thing, what happened in your car, how the gasoline is producing energy for your car to move. It is the gasoline reacts with oxygen inside your engine, and that reaction will produce carbon dioxide and water, and that's what you get out from your exhaust of your car, and the energy produced that will be used for it's like cooking. يعني الفرق ما بين الgasoline that is burning in your car and the cooking that you do in home is that this is in a closed system, which is your engine, and that one is open. And here you're using the energy to cook food, and here energy is used to and transferred into kinetic energy and move your car. Okay. الجازولين بعدين هذا عن combustion of the candle that we talked about at the beginning. It is not about melting, it's about a chemical reaction between the wax, which is made from large number of carbons with hydrogen, with oxygen, and produce carbon dioxide and water. This is about burning ethanol in a ethanol lamp, where you react the ethanol with or any other hydrocarbon with oxygen. It will produce carbon dioxide and water again, but you have to balance it to make sure that the number of oxygen is the same and so on. Okay, I will stop here. Not this here. هذا اللي هو review بس the last 3 slides. We'll do them again on Sunday. That will give you a chance to review the information. But the 5 general types of reaction, you need to remember how they are made from, what are the reactants, what are the product. One of the typical questions that you will see for sure in any coming exam related to this topic will be, which of the following is a combination reaction? Which of the following is a double replacement? Which of the following is, or identify the type of, something like this. Or predict the product sometimes. Any other questions? Anything? On Sunday we have lab. رجعنا كمان مرة يا جماعة الخير. طب احنا قلنا Thursday. THURSDYA يوم الخميس، وكتبت على المودل وقلتها في المحاضرتين. يوم الخميس. الأحد بتشرفونا، اللي بدي يشرفنا هنا واللي بدي يحضر الزوم. It's a lecture. Our labs are on Thursday. واضح؟ طيب قبل ما تمشوا بس واحد اكتبوا، حط خط تحت هذول يا محمد، اكتب لي اسماءكم كلياتكم please. Just separate them with the line. Any questions, anything from the Zoom guys? No? All right. So we should stop this.